Okay, everyone. Good morning. So we have this calendar about presentations and so on. So yeah, I'm still thinking about the French Revolution. For presentations is too much. Maybe you can take, you can have a discussion and in your list discuss who among those who presenting on the French Revolution can move to the American Revolution. For the French, so who has the French Revolution here? Yeah, Lynn, what's your name?
Saron.
Sorry?
Saron.
Sharon. Saron or Sharon?
Saron.
Saron.
Senza.
Saron. Else. Okay, so since you're present, you can take the French Revolution because you're good students, you're here. The two are not here, one of them, at least one of them has to change. So French Revolution, what you have to study is what the book is called What is the Third Estate? What is the Third Estate? By Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès. Okay? So this is what you have to study for the French Revolution. You're two, so you decide how to split. No, better. Let's do this. Lynn, you do this book, okay? Third Estate. You do Sarah. You do the Declaration, the constitutions. You have three constitutions, but the most important thing is the Declaration of the Right of the Man and of the Citizen. Okay? And then you have a look at the constitutions, maybe. But the Declaration, probably the Declaration. So you explain this Declaration, the main principle, and you quote some of the rights. Then if it's not enough, you also look at the Constitution. You have three constitutions, the 1789, 1993, 1995. But you start with this declaration. If it's not clear, we go. So then we have American Revolution. Daniel. Okay, Daniel. So you can choose either you focus on the Federalist Papers or on the Declaration of Independence. You look which one you like. The more the other we're gonna put to one Milana or Miliana. Okay? So here we have the thing. Then we have a lot of students of Marx, but this is okay. Okay, you changed something, Alisa, in this calendar?
Yesterday?
No, it's the same as yesterday.
Yeah, but nothing changed.
Okay. So then for the last 2 weeks we have post-colonial, we have non-Western elements of political thought, and already we have a few presentations. One is on Confucius, one is on the community institutions in Ethiopia, one is on Edward Said. We're going to have also my assistant who's going to talk about Edward Said, so we're building up the last part of the course, which should be post-colonial and world history of political thought. Then we have a lot of students who want to present and discuss Karl Marx. So we have two political thinkers. One is Karl Marx and the other one is Hannah Arendt. So they were important that they made movies on them. So I'm thinking of the possibility of watching the movie together, like late afternoon. So maybe you can discuss it in your list if it's a matter of interest or not. If it's a matter of interest, we can set up a cineforum, as you say, a projection of both these movies or one of these two movies. One is of Karl Marx, the other one is Hannah Arendt. Okay, then let's go to last thing. Okay, midterm exam. Midterm exam is going to be on the day, I still understand, 17, 18 or 19 of March. We decide. Let's see. It's one of these 3 days. This is gonna be until the next week, until the program of the next week. But I will tell you. So and as a yes. Yes, Rousseau is the last topic for the midterm. So when we have the midterm, we will be slightly over Rousseau, but it stops at Rousseau, so you have time to study it. So you start, you start by having a look at my slides. You come, it's, we start with 2 questions. If the 2 questions are okay, we're done. Otherwise, we discuss a little bit. That's all. Let's say the midterm exam is about 40% of the program, so it's worth 40% of the final grade. Okay? So, let's get back to our business. So what we did in just one class is we went through 1,000 years, which is Middle Ages. So, Middle Ages, we said, the peculiarity politically, Middle Ages was dominated by the Roman Catholic Church, which was the most important political institution in Europe. Is still alive, so 2,000 years of this very important political institution, but in the Middle Ages dominated politics. Dominated politics not in an indirect way as it does today, because today in Europe, there are people in society who believe and who believe in religious value, and so they vote the parties in that, have the same values, but the church is separated from the state, meaning that the leaders of the church are not also the leaders of the state. It's too separated. At the time, there was, this was the church, and politics was the right. And also, political thought was about understanding what is good according to moral value, to Christian values, and so on. This was the thing. So it was not politics. So this was the Middle Ages. Not so much progress, because more than progress, we consider tradition. So the point was that you look back at the Bible, at the holy written things to understand reality. You don't want to go on. You want to stick with what was the tradition, what was the religion, the religious beliefs. Also because, as St. Augustine said, this world is corrupted by sin. Is corrupted by sin. So it's not here that we can find the perfect form of government, the perfect form of institutions, and so on. Because the perfect government is, as St. Augustine wrote, in the city of God, is in the kingdom of God, is in heaven. So there is the perfect form. Here, everything is corrupted, is not very much interested. And also they thought that the time, the notion of time, the concept of time was linear, was not something which went from the past to the future through a line that we can call progress. It was linear, there was cycles, there was a linear notion of time. So this was the relationship between religion and politics. So let's say that in the 3, 4, 5 centuries after the end of the Middle Ages is a slow progress of emancipation and separation of politics from religion. And it ends up with the Enlightenment, the age of reason, the age, l'âge de lumière. The Lumière, enlightenment, this light means the light of reason, the light of science, which shed light on what was obscure because was dominated by superstition, religion, tradition, and so on. So we have 3 centuries to get this proper emancipation. We know that still nowadays we have many countries, we say, in which religion and politics is very much intertwined. So I wanted also to finish with this discussion because we only heard some countries, but not all of them. So, for example, I wanted to understand, you're from Ethiopia, right? How is religion and politics in Ethiopia?
It's separated.
Separated.
Yeah, currently.
Completely.
Yeah, because
Why?
currently, the Christian majority is Christian community and Muslim, so it's like Christianity was dominated and like take the power. Like there was Solomonic dynasty, Aksumite in this period. It was like dominated by the Christian. Like the power is given by God for them. So now that it's Safarid.
What about the Selassie?
Haile Selassie.
Haile Selassie.
Yes, Haile Selassie also was like Christianity king, Christianity ruler. He was like Christian, so
Yeah.
yeah.
But so why Bob Marley say that he is the leader of the Rastafari community?
Because like it's like when he go to the Jamaica,
Yeah.
because they didn't give rainfall or lot of time. So when he land on the land of the Jamaica, it's rain for them. So just they think that he's like also God.
It's God for them. So what did he do? He landed in Jamaica.
Yeah, when he reached in Jamaica, they get the rain. They didn't have a rain for a long time. So
They didn't have what?
rain.
Rain.
Pure.
So let's say landed in Jamaica
They
and the
did
rain
rain.
arrived and they told you what is God.
Yeah.
So it's a Christian God for you, but it's a God for
He did.
Jamaica.
So for us, he's a ruler. He was like he's time. So but for them, he's like God.
Okay, good. So separate. What about you guys? Where are you from?
We're from Kazakhstan.
Sorry?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. How's religion and politics in your country?
It's separated, yeah. Kazakhstan is considered not a religious structure, but
But the majority of Kazakhs are Muslim, but we have a lot of nations in our territory, and because of that, because we recognize them, we don't have official religion.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of Russian, Ukrainians, Koreans, we have a lot of other ethnicities and nationalities.
I see. So why you don't have an official religion? What do you think? Why is so well separated religion and politics?
We recognize that we have a lot of people, of other beliefs, and we like build our politics on the belief of recognition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, but I would also say that you're a former Soviet republic, right? So if you look at all the former Soviet countries like Russia and so on, like also in Vietnam is separated, right? Politics and religion. There is a strong separation. Even, for example, in USSR, religion was almost not allowed, right? So when you have socialist countries, you tend not to have religions, or very much separated. You also have a socialist period, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
It was after Haile Selassie, it was like censorship. It was called Yard. Like it was socialism time.
Yeah, and their religion was not.
No, there was no any kind of religion. Like they think no religion, so no socialism.
Yeah. So religion, socialist country, they say no religion in general. Why? Because Marx said that religion is the opium of the people. So it makes you, it's like smoking opium. You say, I'll be happy in the next life. So when Karl Marx said is you don't have to wait to be died and go to God and say, okay, we'll be happy in this world and we'll be all equal in heaven. Karl Marx said we have to do it now. We We want to build the ideal city here in this world. And the ideal city will be called communism, a society in which you have no class, no private property, everybody is equal and everybody is happy. Didn't go this way, but this explains why socialist countries tend to say, no, church, you just give illusion to the people of being happy in the ideal city after that, but we as communists, we want to build the ideal city right now, here, so you're not allowed to exist. This is why in more socialist country, or ex-socialist country, you have this strong separation between the state and religion, or even religion is not allowed anymore. So for example, the Chinese government has easy to say Christians are not allowed and so on, also for this reason. So, Sarah, where are you from?
Ethiopia.
So, same, yeah. Mazin, how's religion and politics in Iraq?
Politics, it is connected from, related with the religion, so that's make a little conflict in my country.
Yeah, there was a little, there was war, basically, because they tried to do Islamic states,
Yes.
but they failed.
They failed because they always different opinion in the decision in the parliament. So they not arrive to one decision. If they don't take it 3 months, 5 months, maybe take a longer time.
Yeah, because the ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, they wanted to do Islamic state in Iraq and Syria, so they fight a lot and it's dramatic war. So what else do we have? Rush? Yeah.
I'm
Right.
from Turkey,
Yeah.
and in Turkey, it's like, it's not on the constitution, it's Islam, but like, the politicians, like, and the president, like, to hold power, they use people's religion to just like, yeah, it, like, on his speeches or like, in his like campaigns, like, he uses religion to just like, get people's like attention and just like, make people like him or something. But it's not on the constitution, but he uses it constantly to like, in the
Yeah, but let's say your country has a long, long story. So in the Ottoman Empire, religion and politics were pretty much linked, right? Very much linked. Then you have Kemal Atatürk. What did he do, Kemal?
He separated, like the Islam, the Muslims, and from the, he, like on the constitution, he separated.
Why?
Because he declared that the Republic of Turkey is like, I don't know the exact word in English, but
Secular.
yes, secular country.
Yeah.
Turkey must be a secular country, so he separated.
Why?
Because he thinks mixing religion with politics is wrong.
Yeah. Yes. Basically, you know, he wanted to build that, to make republic, to make Turkey a modern republic. But he knew that the church had too much power. So he had to impose the fact that the state is more powerful than religion, so he very much marginalized the church. Indeed, what happened in Turkey, for example, that for a long time it was not allowed to go in public spaces like in university with the how do you call it?
Hijab.
Tether, yeah, with your hair covered. So because you wanted to say, yeah, we state we are more powerful than the church, because the church was very powerful. Something similar happened in France, because in France the state, the church was so powerful for centuries that to establish a republic, they really have to make it separated from religion. So right now in France you cannot go in public spaces with religion signs or symbols of any kind. So, you know, to build a proper state, a proper republic, you have to, for centuries, you have to build a power which is more powerful than that of religion. So what other countries? We said about Italy, we said about Vietnam. Which other countries do we have we didn't consider so far? Any countries? Where are you from? Yeah. Yeah. What? Iran. Okay, we're already addressed. What about Denmark? Denmark, very separated.
Yeah, the same, yeah.
Same. Why?
Because we are also the part of the Soviet bloc,
Yeah.
so they can the
Exactly. So, yeah, we see that, you know, separation from politics and religion is very long, very complicated. Also because, you know, you tend to think religious has to do the good things. And the good things are, you can find it in religious values, in moral values. So you tend to identify. But there was my fellow citizen, Niccolò Machiavelli, who for the first time said, no, this is not the thing. Moral, ethics, religion has their own principle, which is good values, good virtues, being kind, and all these, you know, Christian values. But politics has another principle. Politics has another principle. This principle is the interest of the state, the raison d'etat, the reason of the state. This is the principle. And to achieve this goal, which is a good goal, which is the good of the state, which is the interest of the state, which is improving the well-being of the population, which is improving the strength on the state, which is a good end, sometimes you have to use bad means. Means which are immoral. Means which, according to Christian morality, they are bad. This is why the book The Prince was banned by the church. It was banned. So, this is the point. So, let's see again, let's recap on Machiavelli. So, for all the Middle Ages, we thought that religion was the basis of the state, meaning that the power of the king came from God. He's the king because of the will of God, under the dominance of the church. So it was the Pope who said, yeah, I give you the crown. So, Machiavelli is the first to separate. Also, we saw that also Aristotle wanted to do the same. Okay, guys, when you come later, there is no need to pass just in front of the camera, okay? You can, you can pass by there, and not just sitting in front of the camera. Please, everybody. Okay, so, before Machiavelli, also Aristotle, he wrote this book, The Politics, because he wanted to analyze the laws of the politics. But in Aristotle, the concept of virtue, which is very important, was still a moral concept. You have to be virtue, means you have to be good, not only acting in the public interest, but acting also in a moral way. We saw that Socrates, he died for the truth. They even, in the ancient world, they even had, in the ancient Greece, they even had a word for dying for the truth. Parousia means you want to die for the truth because you believe in the truth and you have moral values. So the virtue in Aristotle was different. For Machiavelli, the virtue is you act in the public interest, you act for the interest of the state, but this sometimes might imply to be immoral. So Machiavelli was the first one to completely divorce religion from politics and to affirm that, politics has to be subordinated to the state. So he's the first one who described politics as an independent activity, which has its own principle, its own laws, okay, which has to be separated by religion. It's not a point of doing, good things. It's a point of doing things which are effective to get more power and for the interest of the population. Like let's make an example. Is it good or bad if you have politicians who stole money and bribe? It's bad. Morally, it's bad, for sure. But and also because it's against the public interest, so this is bad. But what if, you have politicians who stole money, you bribe, but they're very good. They're very good. They make, success in the economy, success for the state. The state become more powerful and so on. Are they better or worse than politicians which are honest? They don't steal them, but they're completely incompetent. They're not good in doing this. So Machiavelli would say, if you want to steal, you can steal, but if you act in the interest of the state, you're better than an idiot who's not able but is honest. Please.
So in Sri Lanka, I'm not saying that they did, but so when you do money laundering, it's good to the state because the state becomes rich, but internationally it's illegal.
Sorry?
It's internationally illegal. It's illegal.
Illegal.
To do money laundering.
Yeah.
But in the state, when you do it, like if one politician do it,
Yeah.
it's just like it's a private vice, but it's public benefit.
There's public benefit. Yeah. So Machiavelli would say very good politician, So yeah, same here. Like for example, in the 80s, we had here one party, the Italian Socialist Party, Partito Socialista Italiano. They stole everything. They took tangenti, bribing, everything, and blah, blah, blah. They were so good, so well prepared, and they did, they were so smart that Italy was growing very, 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 very fast. So right now, these politicians, they all went to jail, basically. But right now, because the judges arrived and, you know, discovered this, you know, tangentopoli, the word of bribery. So they went to jail and blah, blah, blah. But actually, they were very good, you know, compared to the others who came afterwards. They were much more smart. So Machiavelli would say it's more important if you are able to increase the power, to increase, you know, for politics is like this. If you want to judge them morally because they still, you're in the field of moral, you're in the field of religion. But if you want to go in the field of politics, you have to see how they serve the interest of the state. You don't have to judge their moral action. So this is why, you know, say Machiavellian is still an adjective. You say Machiavellian is a person who really is ready to do whatever for getting their meaning. So it has a bad meaning. But actually, this guy was pretty smart and say pretty important things, you know, and started and what he contributed to get out from the Middle Ages, to get out from this, you know, deep intertwining of religion and moral. So there was at this time, you know, everything was dominated by this metaphysic thinking that we found in St. Augustine, which means let's think philosophically, theologically, what is the good, how should be the perfect, the ideal state, how we can comply and stick with those moral values. So Machiavelli is materialist. He is a realist. First of all, he's a realist. He say, yeah, you think of metaphysics, how the world should. I look at reality. He's, you know, he's a founding father of realism. Also Aristotle said this, but Machiavelli is more strong in this. You have to look at reality as it is, not as it ought to be. Not as it ought to be, as Plato did, as St. Augustine did. No, let's look at reality. Let's look at things as they are. He wanted to examine what is actually done, not what it should be done. This is in The Prince. You can read it in The Prince, and so you understand what is political realism. You have to analyze the man as it is, and not how it ought to be. And how is the man? How is the man? The man is bad. So it has a negative anthropology, we say. So they say they are ungrateful, fickle, liars, deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for profit. In the discourses, you even say the all men are bad. So inherent in Machiavelli is this view of the human condition as if that states will always be struggling against the tendencies of this solution, against the tendencies of natural selfishness of man, that we regularly subvert the state to reduce it to chaos, to transform it into something different. So, I think that men are dominated by passions, by self-interest, and so on. So, this is why you need a strong prince. He said the prince has to be strong, has to dominate, has to rule against this natural tendency of human beings of their own self-interest. So, negative anthropology. We understand that when you think about politics, you always implicitly think about man and about human nature. And if you think that man and human nature is good, then you will tend, to some kind of political institutions, to some kind of ideal society. If you think that they are bad, you will tend to other solutions, like you'll be more, law and order politics. So, let's read a quote by the Prince. In discussing this subject, I draw upon an original set of rules. But since my intention is to say something that will prove of practical use to the inquirer, I have thought it proper to represent things as they are in real truth, rather than as they are imagined. Many have dreamed up republics and principalities which have never in truth been known to exist. The gulf between how one should live and how one does live his life, that a man who neglects what is actually done for what should be done learns the way to self-destruction rather than self-preservation. This means if you want to get order, if you want to preserve society, if you want to grow political institution, you have to be realist. And realist means look at reality as it is, not try to imagine the best reality. So we say empirical method. So inductive method means that you don't do philosophy, basically, theoretical thinking. You look at real facts. So right now, nowadays, we have sociology who do, surveys in society. They try to gather data. We have political science. They also do quantitative studies of, data and blah, blah, blah. At the time, the way to ground it in empirical way was looking at history. So Machiavelli looked at history to be realist and adopt an empirical method. And is a man of the humanism and Renaissance, because in history it looked at ancient republic, at ancient Rome, at ancient Greece, So he studied classics. So he said, yeah, we're dominated by this medieval culture of transcendence, of metaphysics, of morality, of Christianity. But why don't we look back at those civilizations before us, at the ancient civilization, at the Greeks, at the Romans, and why don't we recognize that they did great things? So, since he loved the Republic of Florence, he said, why he didn't work the Republic of Florence? Why we got so fucked up? Why we were defeated by the Medicis and also by Savonarola? Let's look at the ancient Republic of ancient Rome to understand why it worked so well. Because he's a Republican, he loved the Republic, and he said, we look back there. So this is why he's a man of Renaissance, he's a man of humanism. So, and then looking at reality, he also came to the paradox of politics, So, he highlighted the irony of the political condition. He stated that where the well-being of society is at stake, conventional vice might become political virtue, and conventional virtue might become political ruin. So when there are problems, when there are issues, when the state is in danger, if the prince acts according to moral value, the state can die. Sometimes when the state is in danger and the prince acts with things that are usually morally considered bad, the state will survive. So what he learned is when he was acting as a Secretary of State for the Republic of Florence, and he was sent to Emilia-Romagna, and he observed this Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia was this morally despisable man, horrible human being, very cruel, passionate, completely degenerate, brutal methods, he killed many people, but he improved the well-being of his population, because all the corrupted, you have corrupted magistrates, corrupted judges, people who were taking tax from the population when they don't want it. And Cesare Borgia killed all of them, So the population say, thank you, Cesare Borgia, because actually you killed those who were against us, those who, acted against us in their own private interest instead of in the interest of the state. So Borgia was accounted cruel. Nevertheless, this cruelty of his reformed the Romagna, restored order. So, Machiavelli started to think about this problem. So this is why the adjective Machiavellian is used to describe the use of clever but maybe sometimes dishonest, immoral methods to win power and to take control. So this is the thing. We have two books. One book is The Prince. The Prince is a book on how to take power and how to keep power. Is a very important book for the history of political thought because it started the separation between politics and morality, politics and religion. The other book that I want you to know is the Discourses on Living, in which he tried to analyze and to explain why the Republic is the best form of government for him. Okay, then we saw two videos, and then you have a lot of slides to read, but we have quotation in these slides. So, and also with Machiavelli, we get out from the Middle Ages. Machiavelli is still a medieval thinker because he thinks that, for example, he thinks that conflict is good within society and that the Republic is good because it allows, riots, insurrection to improve the political institutions. He has a dynamic view of political institution. So it doesn't. Why is still in the Middle Ages and is not in early modernity? Machiavelli. He closes the Middle Ages, but is still in the Middle Ages because he doesn't think yet in terms of state. He doesn't have the idea of state. He doesn't have the idea of sovereignty. He still thinks in terms of republic, like in ancient Rome, like in ancient Greece. He still thinks in terms of republic, but he doesn't have yet the idea of the state. So today we move from Middle Ages to modernity. We divide the modernity part into a first part and a second part. Let's say the early modernity part, we only focus on social contract doctrines. So in the first part, what we want to understand is the invention of the idea of the state. So right now, we take for granted that humans live politically under states. But this only started to come in their mind in 1500 after Christ, 1500s after Christ. So for the 2000 years before that we have analyzed, starting from Socrates, they didn't have the state. We live under states since, they started to think of it, but until the 19th centuries we didn't have real states. We didn't live under states. We have empires, we have republic, we have cities, we have colonies. But the state is a modern invention who took a lot of time to grow up. Today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, we want to understand the invention of the idea of the state. Why we came up with this idea? Why this idea is new, and what are the foundations of this idea? To understand this, we study the doctrines of the social contract. Because the state is understood as a social contract based on sovereignty. But we're going to go through this. So, we get out from Middle Ages and we enter in the modern era. So yesterday I gave you four processes, events, phenomena which brought us out of the Middle Ages and brought us to the modern era. I hope you remember it because they're very crucial. Don't even show up at the exam if you don't know these 4 points. So we have, how do we get out of modernity, from modernity to early modern era? One thing.
Discovery of US.
What?
Discovery of US.
Discovery of?
America.
Yeah.
What did you say?
The US.
The US? Oh my god, yeah, you really.
That's very bad. That's very bad. So discovery of America. Yeah. Christopher Colombo. He took Italians, not bad guys. We did a lot of important things in history. Bad and good, or bad or good. So in 1942 we went to America and discovered the new world. So they still have Christopher Column Day in the United States of America. They celebrate, I don't remember which day it is. And the Italians in America, you know that we have a big community of Italians in America. They call it Italian Proud Day because Colon was Italian. So they're very happy to celebrate this. They go on the street and blah, blah, blah. So at the moment, the community of Indian Americans started to say, no, this is genocide day. When you come and you started to genocide all of our people. So this was a bad thing. This was the starting of a genocide perpetrated by the Europeans to the native people in Americas to establish the United States of America and the states that you did, blah, 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 blah. So we have this, 1942, the discovery of a new world or an act of colonization. 1 point. Second process.
Scientific revolution.
Yes, scientific revolution. So we enter a different cosmology, let's say. Cosmology, a different ontology, because before we thought we only have Europe. This is the center of the world. The world ends, Finisterre. So we enter a new cosmology, a new conception of the world through the discovery of America, but Galileo also started to understand that is not the center of the universe, is not the world, is not our planet, because it's not that there is our planet and the sun goes around, but it's the other way around. So they started to understand that the universe is much more complex than it was. So we discovered that Europe is not the center of the world, and we discovered that the world is not the center of the universe. So this makes things much more complicated than the history that the Christian, Catholic, Roman Church have given for all these centuries. So we have scientific revolution, we had Galileo, we had Descartes, and we had Mr. Gutenberg. What did he do?
Invented printing machines.
Printing machines. Printing machines. So printing machines are very important also because, as we say, during the Middle Ages, all the knowledge, all culture was dominated by church because the monks were the only ones who knew how to write, and all the knowledge, all the books circulated by them, copying. So the church was choosing which books going and not going. So inventing of printing machine also involved a big novelty. Another, which was partly consequences of the printing machine.
Printing Bibles and
Reformation. Reformation. Martin Luther, he said that the church was corrupted because mostly was angry because as we have seen, before starting with Reformation, let's say the other point, the fourth point you have to remember is Renaissance and humanism. We already talked about this through Machiavelli. So, but Reformation was very, 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 very important. Very important. This German monk, So, let's see again what was the foundation of the Roman Catholic doctrine who dominated Europe for all over the Middle Ages. The point that we have seen through St. Augustine is this world sucks, is bad, is the consequences. Since Eve stolen the apple against God, we have been condemned to live in pain. Since we are sinners, our life in this earth is suffering. But we have the solution, because if you enter in the Christian citizenship, in the Christendom, you will be happy after death in the city of God. After that, if you behaved, we want to value your suffering, and we will give you a passport to enter the city of God, to go to heaven, which is the ideal republic, which is not in this earth, which is dominated by sin and so on, and you will go there. So, this was the principle we read in St. Augustine. So the Roman Catholic Church established the method of the indulgences. Means we sell tickets for first class for the heaven. You give me money, and then we will send you. We will help you with God. We will talk. We will call him, and you go to heaven. This monk, he was a real believer in God. He said, "No, this is not. You're corrupted. You want money. You're completely corrupted. You're really horrible people. You're really horrible people." And they said, "Where is written in the Bible that the indulgences give you access to heaven?" So he wrote this 95 theses, and he wanted in his city Wittenberg in Germany in 1570s, and he write these 95 theses on why the church was corrupted and how we could reform the church, reform the Christianity in order to be more in line with the Bible. So Luther's views that the Christian faith could be found in the scriptures alone undermined the role of the church, So 1517 is the start of the Reformation. So what is politically, why is important? Why is so important? Because first, we said during all the Middle Ages the Roman Catholic Church was the most powerful and important political institution. Then he split it. He split it because Luther had really clear, good reasons to say against the Catholic Church. So many people say, yeah, you are right. So this is huge thing. You have a schism in the Christian church. So we have this discovery of the new world, the world changes shape. We have this discovery of the universe changes its shape, and also the Roman Catholic Church was, separated. There is a schism. There are the Protestantism who start to grow up. So, who is Protestant here? Not even one Protestant here in the class. You are? Okay. So we have one Protestant. So Protestant still nowadays, they're still very important in politics. We have different ideas along the spectrum. But let's say Martin Luther, he was conservative because he said, let's get back to the Bible as it is written. But the effect was a very progressive politics that gave birth to modern individualism. Why? Because in Catholic doctrine, you have God, the people, and the church is the intermediaries. So you don't talk to God straight away. You talk to the priest, like confession, I have done this sin, then the priest tells you, okay, now you do this, and you will be forgiven by God. So you don't talk to God, you talk to the priest. Catholics. Luther, you can individually already talk to God. You can individually read the Bible by yourself. This is why his most important initiative was to translate the Bible in German language and to circulate the Bible. So, you as an individual, you can read the Bible by yourself, in your language, no Latin, like the Catholics, and you can talk to God straight away. You can pray by yourself. You can establish a relationship, a straight relationship with God. This is very important because it's the foundation of modern individualism. So modernity, we start to think that the individual human being is the center. Before, in ancient Greece, in ancient Rome, in the Middle Ages, is the community. We don't think of individuals as the center of the world. We think more in terms of society, we think more in terms of community, and so on. So Martin Luther starts, let's say the Lutheran theology, provides foundations for modern individualism. So let's see a little bit of history. It was excommunicated by the church. It was declared outlaw, heretic, and then, as a consequence, as we say, we have the split of Christianity. The Reformation led to a split in Christianity between the Roman Catholic Church and the new Protestant denominations. The Reformation challenged the authority of the Catholic Church and led to the formation of many Protestant denominations, including Lutheranism, Calvinism, Anglicanism, and so on. So, this separation, this religious separation, laid the foundation for the birth of national identities. Because, Protestants start to gather in specific areas, in specific parts, and Anglicans in England, for example. So, specific regions and nations started to be associated, no? So the Reformation helped to solidify the identities of Protestant countries such as England, Germany, and the Netherlands. They started to recognize themselves as a nation, as political communities identified by this link. Then, as I said, there was the rise of individualism because the Reformation challenged the authority of the Catholic Church and emphasized individual faith and this personal relationship with God. So this emphasis on individualism paved the way for the Enlightenment, the modern individualism, individual rights, and so on. So it also had big consequences in terms of religious words. Because we said that in the Middle Ages, religion and politics were deeply intertwined. So it was not that you could choose another religion and be quiet in politics. No. There is, you go to another religion, so this is a huge mess, this is not acceptable. So they started these religious wars in Europe. The wars began in the 16th century and continued into the 17th century. There was even this war which lasted 30 years, 1618 to 1648, one of the deadliest conflicts in European history. It was primarily fought between those states who had become Lutheran, Protestant, led by Sweden, Denmark, and the Catholic state, led by the Holy Roman Empire. Brutal violence, because when politics and religion are so intertwined, you think that killing the other is a kind of moral duty. So it was very, 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 very violent massacres of civilians, because you don't make a distinction anymore when you have to kill the unfaithful, you kill all of them, civilians, destructions of towns and villages, and then there was the famine, the disease, and so on. Very hard time in Europe. Religious wars had a significant impact on Europe, because the infrastructure, roads, bridges, buildings, they was completely destroyed. Economic disruption, social disruption. So this was the situation. It was a very deadly war. So, we have to imagine this situation. We have big novelties. These big novelties, discovery of the New World, the scientific revolution, humanism, Renaissance, and overall the Reformation, they, challenge the primacy of the Catholic Church as the most important political institution, which was organized in the Roman Holy Empire, and triggered wars, triggered religious wars, deadly, brutal, violent, deadly, brutal, violent. It is in this situation that the doctrine on contractarianism, the doctrines of the social contract started. It was, first of all, a way to understand how to face this very difficult situation. This very difficult situation. So, we come up after this, big turmoil, big transformation and deadly transformation and big chaos, which stands like around 100 years of religious war, of violence, of novelties, of crisis of the domination of the Catholic Church. It is in the consequences of this that we kind of invented the state. Indeed, we had the Peace of Westphalia, 1648, in which we considered the emergence of this state. So what very influential thinkers say is to fix the situation, to solve the situation, we had to establish a new political authority, a new form of political authority. So, how can we legitimize this political authority? So far, political authority were most, empires, feudal system, lords, all of them legitimized by the church and dominated by the Holy Roman Empire. So how can we legitimize a different kind of authority? We want to build up a new authority, a new forms of political association. How can we imagine? The first question is the legitimation of this authority, the legitimacy of authority. And so this is how the theory of the social contract started. The theory of the social contract is still the foundation of the states in our days. We think that the state is a social contract between the population and the authority, in which the population gives sovereignty to the state. We will come to this concept soon. So, contractarianism is a new political doctrine that came up in the years of the religious wars that want to explain the origin and the legitimation of political authority. How do they do it? They do it in 2 steps. So first, it's a thought experiment. You use idea to imagine a situation in which we have no state, which is the state of nature, so no political authority, no political power everywhere, state of nature. Human beings before society and before authority. Okay? And then you say, okay, so we imagine we are in the state of nature, all individuals and blah blah blah. How would we write a contract all together in which we establish the authority? So the 3 thinkers that we're going to address for this social contract, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, they all do the same thing. They start off thinking the state of nature, how would be a situation in which human beings live without authority and so on, so a sort of anarchy, everybody can do whatever they want, the state of nature, no authority. And then, second step is which kind of social contract we would agree. We would agree to establish a state, to establish a political authority. So, social contract theorists construct the state of nature by taking individuals and placing them in a situation without political authority. This is the idea of state of nature. Human beings before society, before authority. Contractarianism, social contract theories, is a thought experiment that uses the description of the human nature apart from non-political and social norms as a basis for justifying political authority. So, the social contract is the moment in which these individuals living in the state of nature transfer power to the political authority. What it is the state of nature? So this is also here, political anthropology is very important because you imagine the human beings with no authority. So you would imagine if they would behave bad or good. So what is life naturally before the people created government? So do we really know how it is? No, we don't know. We have to do a thought experiment. We have to imagine it. So contractarianism is based on this thought experiment in which you try to imagine how this would be. So this is what different thinkers would imagine that life would be like without government. It's, you know, it's a thought experiment in which you try to imagine how we would work in this class without the state, without anything. Like, for example, if we imagine there is no police around there, would we try to steal each other computers, or should we try to establish good institutions to self-govern ourselves? So, yeah, so state of nature, so we get out from the Christian ontology in which the state of nature was just the original sin. The original sin was an interpretation of human nature based on the Bible, based on Genesis. The state of nature were designed to replace this conception of the original sin. So, you know, it's an effort to go after this idea of the original sin that we saw is at the basis of St. Augustine theories. And so again, we have the state of nature, first part, and then we move to the social contract, second part. Let's start with the first philosopher who invented the idea of, who proposed the idea of social contract, who proposed the idea of the state, who proposed the idea of sovereignty. He comes from England, and his name is Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes. Not very good looking, but pretty smart. So, Thomas Hobbes was born in 1588 and died in 1679. He lived long time for the time, because, you know, 8 years was pretty much in the time. So he went through all the religious words. He went through all the religious words. We usually consider him the inventor of the modern state nowadays. Not at this time was considered bad as Machiavelli, but is the inventor of the modern state. What I want you to remember from Thomas Hobbes is the invention of the concept of sovereignty. So, he wrote an autobiography. In this autobiography, he wrote, "My mother brought twins to birth, myself and the fear at the same time." So, he was born afraid. When he was born, it was a war between England and the Spanish. So when he was born, there was, you know, like a battle in the sea in front of him. So he said, "I was born and I had a twin brother, which was fear." So he was dominated. He was pretty much dominated by fear, and all his political doctrine is based on how we can overcome the situation of fear that we have. If felt fear because he lived in a situation of violence, he lived in a situation of religious war. So invented the state as a way to fix it, So Hobbes searched for a theoretical solution for the problem of disorder. He wanted to fix disorder. So he thinks that order is the supreme political good that we have to achieve. And this is why he supports a powerful state, because he thinks this is the only way to ensure peace. So he faced, the reality of the religious civil war, and also so he thought that religion was also dangerous. Religious belief was also dangerous, because what he sees in front of him is that religion brought about massacres, violence, raping, domination, and religious wars. So, political anthropology. As Machiavelli, also negative anthropology. Both Machiavelli and Hobbes, they looked as realists, because they start to say, let's look at reality. Human beings are selfish, self-interested, they are full of desire, they're dominated by desires, they only want their satisfaction. Man is egoist, and is even egoist in a rational way, because he wants to his own end, and he also knows how to get it. He's egoist and also fears death. So he's dominated by egoism and by the fear of dying. Hobbes, he was very scared of dying soon. Instead, he lived so long, but he was obsessed with surviving. So, man is a rational egoist who fears death, and this egoism fosters competition and war with all others. So, since goods, including power, are scarce, this competition, and there is conflict. When there is conflict, so you see, let's look at reality. When you travel, this is a few centuries ago. When you travel, you wear arms because you always risk to be robbed, to be attacked. When you're going to sleep, we lock the doors, because we think that maybe if we don't lock the door, someone come and stop us. So, even when we have servants, we lock our chests, because we think they could steal our thing, So, this is the situation. So, and all of them want a happier life. So they want more power, they want more money. So negative anthropology. Men are bad. Also, the very new thing, he also said men are equal. This means that even if somebody is weak, even a very, very, very weak lady, as a powerful man, but he can go back to him and stab him and kill him. So they're equal in the capacity of killing each other, of threatening each other. They are led to a struggle for power. And so the supreme value is self-preservation. The first thing you want is to be safe, to be sure that you can survive, to be sure that nobody else will come and beat you, steal you, kill you. So this was the first thing for the invention of the state. Self-preservation. Self-preservation. Indeed, we will see that when do we start to have a state? When do we start to have a state? What is the first characteristic of having a state? Is the police. What do you want to say?
Building sovereignty.
Sovereignty, yeah. Sovereignty, but to build sovereignty, the first thing is that you have a police. You have police which can, which you can be sure enough that if you go around in the street, nobody's going to stab you, not because they're good, but because otherwise police took them and bring them to prison. So gain the monopoly of legitimate violence. The monopoly of legitimate violence. Why, for example, mafia is such a big problem for the state? Because you have territories in which mafia can exercise violence in a more efficient way than the state. Are more organized than the police somehow. So, the foundation of a state is the monopoly of violence, is the capacity of monopolize legitimate violence. Why? To preserve the population against the other people who are bad. So, let's see, we say each contractarianist, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau have state of nature and social contract. Let's see state of nature for Hobbes. We say negative anthropology. So again, what is the state of nature? It's a situation in which there is no political authority, in which human beings are completely free. They have no rights, they only have liberties. They can do whatever they want. They don't have moral rules, There is no property, no power to protect property. Everyone has the right to do all things. So, for Hobbes, this state of nature would be a war of all against all. So he said negative anthropology, he said negative anthropology, he said selfishness, he said competition for power, for economic resources, and so on. So the state of nature would be a war of all against all. In the state of nature, it would be a situation of homo homini lupus, means every man is the wolf of the other. They're gonna, like the animals. The animals in the state of nature, the animals tend to be predators. Homo homini lupus. So in a situation in which state of nature, no authority, the two people who wants the same thing, who wants the same money, who wants the same power, who wants the same woman, and so on, they enter in a war. They will be their enemies, the enemy of each other, and they will use all means, force, fraud to attain their ends. So in the state of nature, for Thomas Hobbes, people are insecure. They live in constant fear of injuries and death. So they're not sure about their preservation. So this is the legitimation of the political authority for Hobbes. He said, in a state of nature with no political authority, we would be completely insecure. We would not even be sure of survive. When we go in bed to sleep, we will be obsessed that people can come and steal everything and rape our wife and steal all our money and so on and so forth. So he said, the legitimation of the political authority is the need for order. Is the need to establish a force which is able to protect us. To protect us. So, to get rid of the conflict of the state of nature, humans acknowledge the need of a powerful government. Again, the state of nature, for him, if the government doesn't exist anymore, we would get back to a state of conflict, in which you have to defend yourself with violence, in which you have competition for the same gods, in which, since there is egoism, every man thinking well of himself and dating to see the same in others. They must need provoke one another. So there is this egoistic situation. There is this, state of conflict. So, again, the first legitimation that we have thought to establish a state is the fear of violence. And how do we fix this fear of violence? How do we prevent the risk that new can come here and stab me? We give all the power to, an authority, a political authority who is ready to defend me if New wants to stab me. So we give all the power to a sovereign who has, a legitimate body who can exercise violence, take her and bring her to jail, that can do that penalty against her. So this is why we want to enter the contract of government, because without government we risk our life. We want government to protect our own life. So we enter a contract of government. So since in the state of nature we fear each other, we're ready to renounce our complete liberty that we have in the state of nature to enter in a situation of security that it doesn't exist in the state of nature. So, how do we get out from the state of nature and enter a situation of safety? We have to make a deal altogether. This means that I tell Sabrina, you don't attack me and I not attack you. We make a deal together so we can be sure, because we all agree. So we do a social contract. All together. So we must agree, all of us, simultaneously, to sign a social contract in which we accept to behave, to give to give up our liberty and to enter in order to get in an exchange safety.
In political theory, we actually studied this, and I forgot in Latin. There's one called pactum subjectionis.
Yeah, pact and covenant.
Yeah, it's the when you give up the authority to someone else to govern for you, and there's another one, pactum lumionis or something. It's like the right to life that nobody can attack me if it's true.
So there is a covenant and a pact, right? So you did it on political theory, Professor Issa Geniale.
Yeah, and
Okay, you start
and then the Leviathan.
and the Leviathan. Yeah, and the Leviathan. Yes. So, what is the covenant, the pact that we do together? We say, I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man or to this assembly of men on this condition, that you also give up your right to this man or assembly of men and authorize its action in every manner. So this means every one of us make a pact and say, okay, I give up my rights, and I give these rights to, can be a man, can be an assembly of men, but to an authority, and you do the same. So you can build up a situation in which we are sure, because we make a mutual pact. So this contract is designed to create the most powerful government possible. The most powerful government possible. So let's see how this looks like. The Leviathan. The Leviathan. So you see that this is the most powerful power ever built. It's a huge man who has a sword and is ready, to beat who disobey. But if you look at this man, inside this man there are all small little human beings, because this huge power is the result of all of us giving him our powers. And this is the Leviathan. So, the Leviathan. This contract is designed to create the most powerful government possible. Hobbes defines it as a contract, as a mutual transferring of rights, give rise to mutual obligations. So the only way to ensure order for everyone is to acknowledge a perpetual sovereign power, the state or the Leviathan, against which all of us will be powerless. This represents a cohesive solution to the problem of social order. You know, you have egoism, you have disorder, you have this negative anthropology. So if you think that men are bad, then you think that the state must be very strong. This is the consequence of having a negative anthropology. You think all men are bad, so they are egoistic, they self-interested, so you need a strong government full of power, with a very strong police, with a very strong army, with a very strong judicial power, in order to be able to exert coercion against the individual attitudes, you know. So this is negative anthropology. If you think of right-wing politics, more or less this is the assumption. People are, you know, tend to be individualistic, tend to be bad, and so on. So you need to have a very, very, very strong power. Right wing is based on this law and order. Left wing, you say, yeah, human, more or less they're good. They become bad because, you know, because society is based on injustice, because there is economic deprivation, because the state doesn't work so well. So we should have, you know, politics that change the situation rather than repression. So negative anthropology versus positive anthropology. So we want to make the social contract to establish the Commonwealth. So, which we call a Commonwealth, and to establish the civil laws, and to do this mutual covenant. So, we establish this Leviathan as a collective agent. So, we overcome the natural conflict, the natural individualism, the natural egoism, the natural tendency towards violence. So we do this pact or covenant. Individuals renounce all their power to this assembly of men or individual men, which gives shape to the sovereign power. And we become subjects to this power. We have to obey this sovereign power. So again, what is the covenant? I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man or to this assembly of men on this condition, that you give up your right to him and authorize all action in his like manner. In this way, through this covenant, the multitude is so united in one person. Commonwealth, the civitas, that is the generation of the great Leviathan, what he calls, the mortal good, the mortal God, to which we, under this immortal God, we will have peace and defense. So, this is the Leviathan. This is the Leviathan. It's clear that here we start to establish a kind of civic religion, because this Leviathan, this sovereign power, is something that some kind resembles to a mortal God, to a living, to a God who stays in this world. So the Leviathan is the most important book by Thomas Hobbes. It's one of the greatest masterpieces of political theory, and his main idea is that because a state of nature could be a state of war, individuals in such a condition would choose to enter into this social contract, creating absolute government. He says a man or an assembly of men, but Hobbes prefers a monarchy because he prefers, a single sovereign. So you have to establish this Leviathan. This means that we give up our rights, so each of us becomes a part of this new sovereign power, which is built in this way. So, what does it have? What do we need to have this Leviathan? We need to give him sovereignty. So until that moment, you only think of the sovereign as the monarch, as the king. But he made this concept called sovereignty as a new definition of a kind of power, of the quintessence of political power. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty is a form of power. It's a form of power that is supreme and is over all other forms of power. It's is above every individual power that we have. Is the ultimate, is the supreme power that is exercised over all inhabitants and citizenship. And it implies the monopoly of coercion and legitimate violence. Means that the first act you have to do to achieve sovereignty is to have the monopoly of violence. You have to have a police. You have to have, a body of people who are able to guarantee that your laws are respected, that your power is respected. So sovereignty is the sovereign power in some political body which occupies a position of supremacy. Sovereignty is the highest or ultimate source of political power in that political body. And the most important attribute of sovereignty is the ability to make law and to make this law respected. As the ultimate power, the sovereignty makes law binding on everyone else in the territory. The sovereign is not subjected to law because he makes law. The sovereign is subject only to natural law. So, sovereignty is absolute. There is no power bigger than sovereignty. Is indivisible. Sovereignty is one, and you have to give it to one entity. Power is one by nature. If two powers emerge, there will be war. As I said, when you have the state and you have the mafia, the state and the mafia must be in conflict for who is sovereign over the territory. And only war can decide between two sovereign powers. This is why at the international level, when you have two sovereign states, the only way to decide, when there is a big controversy, you go war. And this violence, which decide, is inseparable and is unlimited. Sovereignty. This is the foundation of the modern state. So let's see the constitution of your country. Let's see the constitution of your country. Article 1. Who knows the Article 1 of the constitution of the country? Italians. Let's go. Let's start with Italy. What's the first article of our constitution?
As people have the power, popular sovereignty.
Popular sovereignty. So, l'Italia è una repubblica democratica fondata sul lavoro, la sovranità appartiene al popolo che la esercita nei modi indicati dalla legge. Italy is a democratic republic. Sovereignty belongs to the people who exercise it in the form established by law. So, what is the constitution? Who wants to tell me the first article of the constitution of your country? Have a look on the internet and let me know.
We have the same.
You have the same.
Yeah, but not officially of Russian Federation.
You know how is you remember?
Yeah, that we also people of sovereign country.
So Russia is a sovereign country. Yeah. Let me know other first article of constitutions. Come on, have a look at the internet. Tell me about Danish, Czech Republic.
The power lies with the king.
What?
The power lies with the king.
The power lies,
Lies with the king. The king has the power.
but is power sovereignty?
It says power.
It says power. So the power, tell me in English. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's in English.
The power belongs to
Lies
the
with king, yeah.
lies with the king. Interesting. Czech Republic.
The republic is a sovereign unified country based on the rule of law and the respect towards individual rights and duties of the citizens.
Is a sovereign country. Is a sovereign country. Yeah.
Ethiopia is federal democratic Catholic country.
And then?
Sovereignty is activated, for example.
Not. Morocco.
Social monarchy, constitutional.
First article of the Constitution. You have a Constitution. Have a look. Other countries' first article of the Constitution.
The Republic of Kazakhstan proclaims itself a democratic, secular, legal, and social state, as the supreme values of which are individual, peace, or thorough life, rights, and freedoms.
Others.
The Socialist Republic of Vietnam is an independent, sovereign, and diverse country which is in its territory, integrity, comprises mainland, Iceland, territorial waters, and airspace.
Good. Sovereign. Yeah.
Morocco.
Morocco is a constitutional, democratic, parliamentary, and social monarchy. The constitutional regime of the kingdom is founded on the separation, the balance, and the collaboration of the powers, and depends on the participative democracy of the citizen, and the principles of good governance, and the correlation between responsibility for and the rendering of accounts. The nation relies for its collective rights on the federal consonants, on the occurrence of moderate Muslim religion, on the national unity of its multiple components,
Moderate. What do you say? Moderate Muslim religion.
moderate Muslim religion, on the national unity of its multiple components, and on the constitutional monarchy and democratic choice.
Others.
The state of Turkey is a republic. The Republic of Turkey is a democratic, secular, and social state governed by the rule of law, respectful of human rights, loyal to Atatürk's nationalism, and based on fundamental principles set forth in the preamble within the understanding of social peace, national solidarity, and justice.
Others.
The form of government of Iran is that of an Islamic republic endorsed by the people of Iran on the basis of their long-standing belief in the sovereignty of the truth and justice of the Quran, following the victorious Islamic revolution led by Imam Khomeini.
Okay, good. So, as you can see, implicitly or explicitly, you tend to have the point of sovereignty in the first article of the Constitution of a state. Like you tend to say, this state is a sovereign state. This means that there is no other power over its own power. Or you tend to say in the state the sovereignty belongs to this or to this, or when you say, it's a national unity, you implicitly say that, you're independent, you have a sovereignty. There is no power who can command you. There is no, you say, I'm a sovereign country, this means that there is no other people that can give me tell me what to do, because I have sovereignty, because I'm the ultimate sovereign power. Also, so this is, Hobbes said this. Hobbes said this for this, and the foundation of the state is this idea of sovereignty. This idea of a power which is above all the other powers. What is new, also very important for Hobbes, is the fact that sovereign comes from below, comes from a social contract among the people. This is the first, it's very novel. It's very novel because until that moment, power came from God, from the will of God. Here it comes from the people, from a social contract among the people. The people want to establish a super powerful sovereignty, but still this power, this sovereignty comes from the people. Comes from the people who wants to establish sovereignty because they're all equal among them. They're equal in the sense that they can kill each other, they can beat each other, because in the state of nature you cannot be sure, never. Everybody can kill you in any moment. So this is why we are sure. So fear to violent death is the main force that feeds the organization and preservation of Leviathan. So human nature is bad. Human beings are violent. Human beings are selfish, egoists. So we need sovereignty as a supreme power who is able to coerce, to undermine this bad human nature. We accept the sovereign because it's rational and it's convenient for us. So, what we have to retain from Thomas Hobbes is this. It's new because the power comes from below, comes from a social contract that we do all together in order to avoid, to put us in a situation in which we live a bad life because we are unsafe, because we have fear. So to overcome the fear of violence, we have to do this. This is a decision that comes from the people, the legitimation comes from the people. But to escape fear, we have no choice. We have to build a strong state. We have to build a supreme power, an extra power, the biggest power ever taught, which is the sovereign power. We are the source of the sovereign power, but we must obey the sovereign power, because the moment one disagrees, we're fucked up with the covenant. So we have always to obey. If we do not, and the most important thing is, if we do not obey the sovereign power must be able to, make us respect the law. So this is why the first thing to establish a state is to establish, a way to make laws respected. And the way to make the laws respected is to have a monopoly of legitimate violence. Means that if you break the law, I'm able to send you the police to cut you, to put in a car, and to bring you to jail for how long do I think is right to put you in jail. So there must be a monopoly of violence, in the sense that if you try to exercise social violence, individual violence by itself, I have my own organized, legitimized violence which makes law respected. This is, and the moment in which there is another organization who is more able than me to exercise violence, my sovereignty is in crisis. I have to enter in war with these other forces. This applies, for example, revolution. Revolution means that the people, at a certain moment, are able to exercise more violence than the state. Means go in the streets and somehow, take the power through violent means, or to organize a guerrilla movement who is eventually able to defeat the army of the state and seize power. We have the problem of organized crime. It's a problem for the state, because sometimes when organized crime is more able to exercise violence, the state does not exist anymore in that situation. So in the 90s, here in Sicily, we had a strong confrontation between the state and the mafia, because in some places the mafia was able to control, through physical violence, through the threat of violence, parts of the territory which was not anymore under the control of the state. So we have to understand that violence is the first problem we want to address by the state. We want to remove violence from society. We want to remove the threat of violence from society. To remove the threat of violence from society, we have to build our own organized violence, which is the army, the police, the state, the jail, and so on. So this is a kind of paradox we have in politics, because we want to build the state to avoid violence, to make sure that when we go home we can feel somehow safe, that nobody is going to rob. When we go to sleep, we can feel reasonably sure that we will sleep until the morning after without people getting into our apartment and stealing our thing and killing each other and raping us and blah, 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 blah. But to do so, to achieve this objective, we need unorganized violence, which we cannot contest, which we have to accept as it is. So, as we see, the first foundation of the state is the need to build sovereignty as legitimate monopoly of violence. Why? Because we think that human beings can harm each other, can be violent, can be egoist, so we need to invent and to establish a powerful authority, which at the times of Hobbes, he wanted to be able to stop the violence that destroyed Europe for more than 100 years. Thank you so much and see you tomorrow. Ciao.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.